All right, thanks, guys. Happy Thursday afternoon. Lines are out for Friday, so let's talk baseball. First game, Reds, Cubs, 220 Chicago. Slight fade of the Cubs in the early going here. Chicago was $1.70 down to $1.65. No total as of yet. And at the moment, we got Tyler Mahle for the Reds, Mike Montgomery for the Cubs. Chicago's won 71% of their ball games when Montgomery made the start. Since he's gone just 9-16 in their games versus teams allowing less than 4 runs per contest. Tyler Mahle starts did go just 5-12 to the over so far in the year. So all that said and done, I'm going to take the Cubbies run line and the under if it's 7 or higher. Next game, Phillies, Pirates, 7:05 Pittsburgh. The Phils are $1.05, totals 8.5. 73% are leaning toward the Phillies. And at the moment, we got Nick Pivetta for Philadelphia, Trevor Williams for Pittsburgh. The Pirates are 6-15 in their games after a day off. They're also taking on a Phillies squad who's just 17-21 in their games away from home. Now, total-wise, we are looking at 0-4 to the over in these teams for head-to-head matchups. So all that in mind, I'm going to lean toward Pittsburgh in the under 8.5. Next game, Marlins, Nationals, 7:05 Nation's capital. The Nats are getting faded in the early going here. Washington opened 215 all the way down to $1.85. Totals at 9 flat. We're looking at Straley for the Marlins, Gio Gonzalez for the Nationals. Washington's a perfect 3-0 in their head-to-head matchups with Miami. They're also taking on a Marlins squad who's winning just 31% of their ball games at the current money line odds. Now, scoring-wise, Washington's just 6-11 to the over when Gio makes the start. So all that said and done, I'm going to take the Nats run line and the under 9 flat. Next game, Yankees, Blue Jays, 7:07 Toronto. And the Yankees are getting faded in the early going here. Opened $1.55 down to $1.45. Totals at 9.5. We got Sonny Gray for New York, Sam Gaviglio for Toronto. But despite taking most of the early money in this one, the Blue Jays have really struggled against New York, winning just 3 of 10 head-to-head matchups. They're also taking on a Yankees squad who's a remarkable 11-2 in their games following a day off. Now, total-wise, just 30% of these teams' head-to-head matchups actually got over the total. So all that said and done, I'm going to lean toward the Yankees in the under 9.5. Next game, A's, Indians. There it is, 7:10 Cleveland. The Indians are getting faded in the early going here as they open $1.95, now down to $1.80. Totals at 9.5, and we're looking at Blackburn for Oakland, Carrasco for Cleveland. The Indians are an impressive 25-10 as the home favorite, and the good news for them is they are taking on an Oakland squad who's just 13-22 versus winning ball clubs. Now, total-wise, Cleveland games have gone 10-1 to the over at home when the line was 9 or higher. So all that in mind, I'm going to take the Indians run line and the over 9.5. Next game, Rangers, Tigers, 7:10 Detroit. The Rangers are getting faded in the early going here. Open $1.15 down to $1.05. Totals at 9.5. We got Cologne for the Rangers, Zimmerman for the Tigers. Detroit's just 42% as the dog. They're taking on a Texas squad who's taken 2 of 3 head-to-head matchups earlier in the season. Now, scoring-wise, we are looking at 3-0 to the over in these teams' 3 head-to-head matchups. So all told, I'm going to stick with the Rangers in the over 9.5. Next game, Rays, Mets, 7:10 Flushing, Queens. And no surprises here as we're seeing a steady and consistent fade of the Mets in the early rounds of betting. They open $1.80 down to $1.65. Totals at 7 flat. 67% of the betting public is leaning toward Tampa Bay. And at the moment, we got Ryan Stanek for the Rays, Jake DeGrom for the Mets. But as good as DeGrom has been for the Mets in certain spots this season, They've gone a measly 6-11 in their games where Jake made the start. They're also taking on a Tampa team who's a solid 16-11 versus sub-500 ball clubs. Now, total-wise, just 3 out of Ryan Stanek's 9 starts actually got over the line. So all that said and done, I'm going to lean toward the Rays catching the plus money in the under 7 flat. Next game, White Sox, Astros, 8-10 Houston. 20-cent fade of the Astros in the early going here, but they did open up 300 down to 280. Totals at 8 flat. And at the moment, we're expecting Lopez on the bump for the White Sox, Lance McCullers for the Astros. And when it comes to this Houston ball club, they've really taken care of business against losing organizations. An impressive 23-7 record versus sub-500 teams. And they're also taking on a Chicago squad who's winning a measly 25% of their contests at the current market price. Now, total-wise, we're looking at 3-0 to the over in these teams' 3 head-to-head matchups. So all that said, I'm going to take the Astros run line in the over, 8 flat. Next game, Braves, Brewers, 8-10 Milwaukee, and a slight fade of the Brewers in the early going here. Milwaukee opened $1.30 down to $1.20. Totals at 8.5. 75% of the current bettors are still leaning Atlanta. And at the moment, we are looking at Fultonavich for the Braves, Peralta for the Brewers. And not a bad start here for Peralta. 4-1 for the Brewers in their games where Freddie made the start. They're also taking on a Braves club who dropped their last 2 straight. Now, scoring-wise, just 28% of Milwaukee's games got over the total when taking on winning ball clubs. So all those trends in mind, I'm going to take Milwaukee and the under, 8.5. Next game, Orioles, Twins, 8-10 Minnesota. And the Twins are taking money in the early going here. No real surprise there. They opened $1.20 up to $1.25. Totals 9.5. 60% are still leaning toward Minnesota. And at the moment, we are looking at Dylan Bundy for the Orioles, Lance Lynn for the Twins. And as bad as Minnesota's been at times this season, they are playing 500 baseball in their games at home. They're also taking on a Baltimore squad who's winning a pitiful 23% of their games as the underdog. Now, total-wise, Minnesota's gone 10-6 in their games where Lance Lynn made the start. So all those trends in mind, I'm going to take the Twins in the over, 9.5. Next game, Red Sox, Royals, 8-15 Kansas City. And no surprises here as Boston opened 285 up to 310. Totals at 8 flat. 80% of the betting public is still leaning toward the Bo Sox. And at the moment, we're looking at Chris Sale for Boston, Jason Hamill for KC. I mean, this one could really end up at 400, the $4 favorites. But anyway, I don't think that'll happen. But regardless, I'm getting off topic. But anyway, the Royals are dismal, 6-27 as the home underdog. They are taking on a Red Sox club who's a very impressive 22-8 in their games as the official road favorite. Now, total-wise, Jason Hamill starts did go just 4-13 to the over so far this season. So all that said and done, I'm going to take the Red Sox run line in the under 8 flat. Next game, Pods, D-backs, 940 Arizona. And in the early going here, we're actually seeing a significant 15-cent fade of the Diamondbacks. They opened $1.55 down to $1.40. Totals at 8 flat. And at the moment, we got Joey Lucchesi for the San Diego, Zach Godley for Arizona. And when it comes to this D-back squad, they've really taken care of business against these losing ball clubs, 24-14 in their games versus teams under 500. They're also taking on a Padres team who's winning a measly 34% of their ball games played at the current price. Now, scoring-wise, Godley starts did go 11-6 to the over so far in the year. So all that said and done, I'm going to take the D-backs in the over 8 flat. Next game, Rockies, Mariners, 10-10 Seattle. The Mariners were $1.15 up to $1.25. Totals at 8.5. 79% are still leaning towards Seattle. And at the moment, we are looking at German Marquez for Colorado, Felix Hernandez for Seattle. Now, the Mariners are an absolutely unheard of 17-1 in their games at the current moneyline price. They're also taking on a Colorado team who's won just 8 of 17 when Marquez makes the start. Now, scoring-wise, the Rockies are 8-4 to the over after a day off. So all that in mind, I'm going to lean toward the Mariners and the over 8.5. All right, next and final game for the show. It is going to be Cardinals-Giants, 10-15 San Francisco. And we are looking at a 20-cent fade of the Giants in the early going here. San Fran opened 135 down to 115, totals at 8 flat. And at the moment, we are expecting John Gant on the bump for St. Louis. Derek Rodriguez taking the hill for San Francisco. The Giants are a solid 5-1 in their games where Rodriguez made the start. They're also taking on a Cards ball club who's dropped 4 out of their last 5 when John Gant made the start themselves. Now, total-wise, the Giants are 24-16 to the over in their games at home. So all that said and done, I'm going to take the Giants outright in the over 8 flat. All right, folks, that is going to do it for me. But before I get out of here, I just have to remind you to check out my daily best play at patreon.com/BrockPage. And with a documented win percentage of 60% for the entire year of 2017, you're hurting yourself each and every day you're not subscribed. And as always, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed all this great free information. And please don't forget to check out my daily best play at patreon.com/BrockPage.